So today we're going to talk about the different options to care for your children. There's three obvious choices out there. I'm sure there's others, but I'm going to focus on the fact that most American families use either daycare or they get a nanny. Daycare is definitely known to be the cheaper option. It's actually what my family started with from when my first was about 3 months old until my then first was in first grade. All the way up to that point, he was about 7 years old at that time. And we also had a second, and she went through daycare too, all the way up to kindergarten. And it was all right. At first, it was great. In fact, we were really lucky that my husband works for Home Depot. They've got a great on-site daycare, and we decided to start in that direction. And in the beginning, it worked really well when they were babies. We felt like, the pros that are often brought up with daycare are that it builds independence. It builds great socialization skills. They spend all day with babies and other toddlers and kids their age. There's definitely a structured day. Maybe not in the beginning when they're babies, but as they get older into that preschool and older age groups, they start to do arts and crafts. They'll bring home cute little Mother's Day presents. All that is really great. And most of the time, it's the cheapest option. It's not cheap. No care is cheap, but it is the most cost-effective option. However, for us, this turned into a problem as my son got older. He went on to kindergarten and first grade, and we were just using an after-school daycare, so we had to switch to one in our neighborhood. We tried several. We actually, I think in the last year that we did daycare, went through 4 or 5 different daycares. And the problem is, one, my son has ADHD, so he's a little bit more challenging in the fact that he really struggles to communicate, and he's not going to open up to strangers. So as soon as someone took his toy, he'd shove them back, and then a kid would tell on him, and they wouldn't, like the daycare people just didn't understand what was happening. It was really stressful. I'd get calls while I was in important meetings at work, and I'd have to go immediately pick him up. It was just very stressful. That's what made us start investigating getting an Aupair. The other option is getting a nanny. I don't know as much about this. I did investigate it a little bit, but for us, the jump from the cost of daycare to the jump of getting a nanny just was so high and so impactful to our finances that we really didn't investigate that probably enough to talk knowledgeably here about it, but it just wasn't an option for us. So we went on to investigate Aupairing. So one, I'll say, daycare is great for getting socialization and for cost effectiveness. Aupairs are great for building a one-on-one bond, which is what my son really needed. He needs to trust that person and have a long-term relationship with that person to be able to communicate and get across what he needs. And that person needs to really understand his quirks and the things he's going to do. And since the Aupairs arrived, I will say that he was struggling in school. He's on an IEP plan, and for those that don't know what that means at school he is in a smaller class with specially trained teacher. He gets special help to try to catch up in certain subject areas like reading. That was one that was a big struggle. When he started first grade, he was still at a beginning kindergarten level. And when he ended first grade, he was somewhere still around end of kindergarten. And so when my au pair joined the family and my son was starting second grade, he was still at a beginning first grade reading level. But within 3 or 4 months, he had already caught up to second grade reading level. And when he finished second grade, he's at a third grade level. That alone to me said a lot about the power of having that one-on-one bond and someone to work individually with him every day. I also say my kids have a great bond. Really, really love the au pair. She is fabulous to them. She understands them. She knows what they like, and she gives them structure too. She also is great on flexibility, so that's the next subject to talk about, flexibility. Daycare is not that flexible. They've got set hours. Granted, they usually cover the hours you're going to need for a standard work day, right? Most daycares open around 6 or 7, possibly 8, and close somewhere between 4 and 7 at night. And there's even some daycares, of course, that are 24-hour daycares that you would pay a little bit more for. So, you can get that. But what I do mean in comparison to a nanny is that a nanny you'll pay by the hour, and therefore you'll probably want to cut your hours down, versus the au pair is a weekly stipend. So you don't have to worry about the hours as long as you can stay within the federally regulated hours. And those hours are 45 hours per week that they're allowed to work, which can be anything from working with your children to doing any child-related chores, such as the children's laundry, the children's meals, cleaning up after them. So 45 hours for us was prohibitive before the kids were in elementary school. But now that they're in school every day, we are able to make that work and even have time left over for date nights. And the flexibility that I feel like I really get from the au pair is the fact that I can schedule her for 30 to 40 minutes in the morning to help wake the kids up, cook them breakfast, get them to the bus stop. And then I can schedule her for like 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon, and then for 30 minutes at the end of the evening to put them to bed. It's very unlikely that you'll get a nanny who's willing to go back and forth so many times in one day. You'd probably have to schedule just one big block with her. So I do feel that au pairs are the most flexible option. And trust-wise, nannies and au pairs, I think you probably get the same amount of trust. The daycare, I think if you're investigating them well, you'll get trust, but it's not with an individual person, it's just trust with that corporation. So those are some of the differences you're going to have to think about as you choose between these options. Obviously, this channel is going to focus on the pros and cons of au pairs, so that is more where this is going to go now. So I already said the reason why I originally liked the idea of having an au pair was the flexibility and the fact that it's a little bit more expensive than daycare, but I feel like all the benefit I just named is worth that extra expense. So let's get into that cost a little bit. There's an upfront agency fee, and when you start looking at these agency fees, you probably will be a little shell-shocked. Agencies charge anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 for 1 year to have an au pair. And most of them want most of that money up front right before the au pair arrives, but there are installment plans that some of them are willing to do. So you have to look into that with each au pair company. The weekly stipend for the au pair is federally regulated, and at minimum is $195.75 per week. And then the other cost that you must give the au pair is you must provide her own private bedroom, and you must provide food for them, just like you provide food for your family. Beyond that, many host families provide other things, and it is up to you at that point what you want to provide. So some host families provide cars. We actually do not, but a lot of host families do provide that. And if you provide a car, you'll need to provide insurance. Obviously, that will make the cost go up quite a bit. But there's other perks that you can provide. So like, for instance, our au pair gets access to everything in our home, including our Netflix and our DirecTV, those kind of services that we have. Obviously, full use of our house because she is part of our family. And that brings me to another benefit of having an au pair is you gain another family member. You don't really understand this benefit until they're here and it happens. But when you're spending your life every day with this person and sharing your life and they're sharing yours, you become really attached. You build a great bond. And that's what makes having them so great, because they do understand your family and they're there for you. So, it's a little bit give and take on both sides. As we've gotten an au pair, we probably spent a little bit more money than we expected because she's family and we love her and it's worth it. So, giving her some extra Christmas gifts or some extra bonus gifts when times are tough or she's doing really well, or, just an extra treat here or there, or taking her out on all of our family vacations. Those are the kind of perks we do, but don't advertise up front. And it's just paid off tenfold. We have just a great bond with her. Actually, the worst thing is eventually she has to go back to South Africa, which will be a really sad day. But pro-con, due to this virus, she has extended with us another 6 months, so we get her until January of 2021. So that is, to me, the pros and cons that you can look at. I think if you look through a few more videos, we're going to talk about, how you interview to ensure right fit and how you welcome them into your home and quickly get over that stranger fear. I know that's another big concern that a lot of families, when I mention, hey, why don't you think about hosting? A lot of people are like, oh, but I don't know if I could handle having a stranger in my home, like touching my stuff, and I'm gonna walk around in my pajamas and they're gonna see me, or maybe worse. Yeah, at first that might feel a little weird, but you'll quickly get over that. You'll both become family, and it'll just be like having your spouse or your sibling or any other close family member there. So give it a try. Keep looking through some of the next videos to see how you would do interviews and match with them. Thank you.